Good evening, everyone. I was about to say good morning. Good evening to the D39 Public Forum. I want to welcome all of the members of our community that are joining us tonight to hear about to learn, actually, not really here, to learn about the candidates that have applied for the D39 legislative vacancy. As many of you all know, that Delegate Kirill Resnick has resigned from his service in the Maryland House of Delegates. He has now joined the Westmore administration, and we really wish him all the best. We've lost a powerful figure in the House of Delegates, a member of the House Appropriations Committee, and he has done tremendous work for the Up County, for which we are internally grateful for. And I'm slightly biased because I'm a member of the Up County as well, so I understand all the issues and the needs of our communities that are really rapidly growing, and just one of the most diverse places in the county, and if not the state of Maryland. So with that said, we had, announced the vacancy on April 22nd, and we had 8 applicants that applied. And of those 8 applicants, 2 have withdrawn their application. The 2 that have withdrawn it are Issam Al-Sharif and Eric Bernard. So tonight we have, I believe, 1 minute. We have, correct me if I'm wrong, if I miss anyone's name here, but we've got Clint Sobrati, we have George Lubnitz, and I apologize if I mispronounce your name. We have Adam Cunningham, we have Greg Wynn, we have Mark Anthony Robles. And is Bobby Bartlett here as well today?
Yes.
And we've got Bobby Bartlett. I just wasn't sure if he was going to be able to make it tonight. So with that said, the public forum will take place just as soon as I finish speaking and turn it over to my colleagues in District 39. Note that this is an opportunity for the community to hear from these candidates. And if so inclined, members or all of our community are welcome to email the email that is provided on the D39 delegate vacancy. And I hope that Michael could perhaps put that in the chat. For those that want to provide letters of support, we are asking, there is a hard deadline. It must be received to that email address or the MCDCC office on Park Lawn Drive. You can find our address on our website, or we can put that in by no later than 5 p.m. on this coming Friday, which I believe is April 14th. And then on April 18th, we will be reconvening for a special meeting of the MCDCC at 6:30 p.m. and to meet with the candidates and vote on them to push a name to the governor that same day. Note that that meeting will also, like all of our previous meetings, will be streamed on Zoom webinar. So with that said, thank you to the District 39 team, and also a special shout out to the District 39 delegation. Thank you so much. I know you've had a really busy session, and we're really happy to have you all back in our districts to work with you all to build this party.
All right, thank you, Chairwoman Saman. Let me also one more time thank everyone for attending. And how many do we have? How many attendees, Michael, so far?
Currently 40.
40. Wonderful. Good turnout. We want, and I also want to one more time thank Delegate Kirill Resnick, former Delegate Kirill Resnick, for his service. So the way we're going to do this is I'm going to first of all ask Michael Tardif to talk a little bit about housekeeping, and if there's anything you want to talk about the technical piece. And Michael will be the timekeeper too. And then I will turn it over to former Delegate Charles Barkley, who will be the moderator, who will be asking questions. And the candidates will have 1 minute for opening a statement and 2 minutes to answer the question. And if there's enough time in the end, within the 90-minute period that we've allocated for this, then hopefully there will be time for closing arguments. With that, Michael, you want to talk a little bit about housekeeping, technical support?
Sure, just one final housekeeping detail for the applicants. I'm going to spotlight you when you are speaking, and 10 seconds before your time is up, I'm going to spotlight the next applicant. So that's your visual cue that you have 10 seconds. I'm not going to say 10 seconds. And then when your time is up, I will just call time. And we'll let you finish a sentence, but if you go beyond that, after your time is up, I will mute your mic. So I will turn it over to Charlie.
Thank you,
Wonderful.
Mike. And
And
Mike,
also,
we
by the way,
appreciate you
yeah,
keeping track of the time, and we appreciate you being here. And I also wanted to thank Senator King for showing up with us and Delegate Resnick, whose seat we're trying to fill. I appreciate you two being here this evening. It's real important to us. Okay, we're going to start with opening statements. And as we told you ahead of time, you have 1 minute for your opening statement. And I'm first going to go to Robert Bartlett. Bobby?
Bobby, you need to start your video.
We can't hear Bobby.
No. 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 No.
Sharon, I think you have your, okay.
I took care of it. But Bobby, we can't hear you.
Mike, we can't hear Bobby.
Why don't we go to the next applicant and Bobby, see if you can work out the technical problem. It seems to be on your end.
Okay, Bobby, we'll come back to you. Next, let's go to Adam Cunningham. Adam, go ahead.
All right, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
All righty, great. Okay, well, good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Cunningham, and I'm honored to be here today as a Progressive Left candidate for the vacant D39 delegate seat. I'm a proud progressive and a staunch advocate for policies that prioritize the needs of our communities and fight for the working class. My policies push to directly address the major issues for Marylanders, and particularly D39 constituents, things that they face in this in this day of ever increasing cost of living, which include but aren't limited to single payer healthcare, rent control or stabilization, raising the minimum wage to $25 an hour, systemic police reform, tax fairness, expanding student loan debt relief programs, universal basic income, ranked choice voting, and prisoner voting rights. As a candidate for state senate in the district last year, I saw firsthand the need for progressive leadership that listens to the people and fights for their best interests and not for personal or corporate interests. I'm committed to fighting for the working class, marginalized communities, and everyone who needs a voice in government. I believe that together—
That's time, Bobby. Thank you.
Oh,
Okay, thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Okay, George, you're on. You got 1 minute.
Thank you. Thank you all for your time this evening. My name is George Juarez. I'm the son of Dominican immigrants, and I moved to Germantown about 3 years ago. Maybe a bit of a newcomer relative to some of my peers here, but I've since listened and learned a lot about the issues across our community and can bring new perspective and ideas to the table. I also serve in the Political Accountability Board, helping to improve policing, increase our community's trust in law enforcement, and improve public safety. The district is one of the most diverse in the country. It's a place rich in culture, and not long ago, we had some of the top public schools across the country. Our schools are the backbone of our communities, and I believe we need to continue to make the investments to ensure they are the standard, including increasing the salaries of our educators. Our roads, bridges, and public transportation systems are in need of investment and modernization, which not only affects our commutes, but also our ability to attract new businesses. And we should continue to support small business, as well as prioritize and expand affordable housing. Cost of living has skyrocketed in recent years, and it's more difficult for families to make ends meet. We need to explore innovative solutions, and I would work diligently to address these and other issues should I represent the district.
That's time, George. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, George. Mark, you got 1 minute.
Thank you and good evening. My name is Mark Anthony Robles. I'm a father, a husband, a small business owner, a proud Navy veteran, and your elected member of the Democratic Assembly Committee for District 39. I've been living in Montgomery Village for over a decade, and this is where I work and raise my family. I'm running for District 39 delegate vacancy because we need to build on existing progress and do it by leaving no one behind. I'm coming from humble beginnings. I know what it is to struggle. There's a lot of families still struggling in the district, and I'm running to make sure that it is better for all of us. I want to thank the D39 Club for putting on this forum tonight. I look forward to answering all the questions this evening. I humbly ask for your support to fill the vacancy for delegate of District 39. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Clint, you got 1 minute.
Hi, my name is Clint Sabrati Jr. I'm a father, husband, union activist, and currently a transit coordinator for Montgomery County Transit System. I live in Montgomery Village with my wife and 2 of our 4 kids on the autism spectrum and attend Montgomery County Public School. However, I started my career as a bus operator, becoming actively engaged, committed, and dedicated to making changes. I was selected and elected as one of the vice president of UFCW Local 1994 McGeo, where I helped to lead the charge on various issues, from protecting workers' right to better working conditions, to lowering healthcare costs and higher wages for the membership. I am running to be the next state delegate of District 39 to bring my collective bargaining policy experience and organizing experience to Annapolis, where we can continue to pass more progressive legislation and address our housing crisis, protect workers' rights and climate change, expand our transportation infrastructure, and continue to build on our educational system, our crown jewel. I look forward to your question and your continued support.
Okay, thank you, Clint. Okay, Greg, you got 1 minute.
This is Greg Wims, Up County Regional Director for Montgomery County Government, and a 6th generation Montgomery County growing up in District 39. I have over 40 years of volunteer service, not only in District 39, but throughout Upper Montgomery County. I'm running for this position because I think that the life experiences I have here in District 39 will serve us well in Annapolis. I grew up in a home that my great-great-grandfather had purchased the land after slavery. And once building this home, I grew up actually in a house with no electricity and running water. So my years in the 39 district as a kid was one of sacrifice. This is one of the reasons why I'm running, to make sure that we have no families that need help will not get the help. So with that, I look forward to your questions. And I thank the Democratic Central Committee in District 39 for having this forum. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Bobby, we're back to you.
Vice President.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
We hear you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can hear you.
We can hear you.
Hello?
Bobby, we hear you.
Oh, you hear me? Awesome.
Yes.
Okay, good. Sorry, I'm trying to juggle multiple Zoom meetings here. Sorry, yes. My name's Bobby Bartlett. I've lived in District 39 in Germantown for 10 years. I have a kindergartner in MCPS, and I teach 6th grade history at Montgomery Village Middle School. I am running to be the first teacher legislator since Eric Ledecky stepped down from MCPS in 2015. District 39 is a very special place to me. You know, that was a bond that was formed over living and working in the district. And then especially strengthened over knocking thousands of doors and talking to neighbors around the community when I first ran for this seat in 2018, a race in which I came 5th in a 7-candidate field. Since then, I've dedicated myself to the community in various ways. I managed marketing up at Black Rock Center for the Arts in Germantown. I've risen to vice president of my homeowners association, and served on Up County Citizens Advisory Board, ultimately culminating, well, maybe not culminating, but for now, in taking a position teaching at Montgomery Village Middle School.
Thank you, Bobby. That's time.
Okay, Bobby, thank you. Okay, now we're going to go to the general questions. Question number 1, and I want everybody to listen because I'm not going to repeat it 6 times. Why do you believe you're the best qualified person to serve as the D39 delegate? And Bobby, we're going to go back to you. Let you start with this one.
What was the question? I didn't, you just heard something.
The question is, why do you believe you're the best qualified person to serve as the D39 delegate?
Yes, sorry. So I am the best qualified person to serve as the delegate. I think the single strongest qualification that I have is the work that I do as an educator in the heart of the district at Montgomery Village Middle School. In Montgomery Village, again, central to the district, this is a place where over the last 20 years, we've seen the median house prices have gone up over 86%, while at the same time, the median income fell by 25%. So where I'm at in the village at the middle school, this is
people are struggling, and I'm kind of feel like I'm on the front lines of it every single day. I don't think there's any other candidate who would be as closely in touch with the struggles that many people in our district are facing, as well as the needs of our kids in the education system that we once had in Maryland and Montgomery County, and in general, we're rebuilding across the board in education systems, as we kind of recover from the pandemic. So I would say between that, my position working with the families in the community like that, and a number of the things that I've been involved with, community service, my essential focus in my life over the last decade has been building the community. And this was long before I got involved in politics, back to when I was the director of ticket sales for the Washington Spirit, playing out at the Soccerplex. So, I've been with a number of various community institutions helping to build up the community that I'm proud to serve every day.
Okay, thank you, Bobby. Okay, next we're going to go to Adam. Adam, why are you the best qualified person to be our delegate?
I'm the best person. That's a good question. I believe the reason why I would be the best person for this seat is because, frankly, I have the lived experience of being a working class Black man living in the district. Part of how I've been living, I currently am a tutor at C2 Education. So I have the experience of talking with children, especially those within this district, about a lot of the plights that they may be having, whether it's with their family, with their schooling and stuff, but also going away from the whole child-oriented thing. Financially, I make maybe $30,000 a year, right? And that amount of money isn't really a lot, especially when we're talking about living in the district, right? Last year, actually, especially when I was looking for new housing because my lease had expired at where I was living before, I had so much trouble finding a place to live. And I know that wasn't my only experience. It wasn't just my experience. It was an experience I was sort of sharing with other people as I was campaigning, which was really interesting. We were sort of connecting in that way, in that effort, right? The cost of living in the district in Montgomery County really is getting too high, whether it's rent or whether it's mortgages. The cost of food is ever increasing, right? So I believe that partly the reason that I should be a delegate is because of that experience, but also I believe that my experience, or rather my fortitude when it comes to the policies that I would be willing to push forward in
That's time,
House
Adam.
of
Thank
Delegates.
you.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Okay, George, why do you think you're the best qualified person to be our delegate?
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to start by saying that there's definitely, from the outset, you mentioned there's 40 plus people here in attendance. And I think that seeing all of that interest and folks sitting in this room virtually, I think that's a good sign already. And knowing how much of a passionate and engaged community we have, I feel fortunate to be a part of the group here. I think what sets me apart, however, is that perhaps my background and my professional academic experiences. I'll start by saying also that my personal mission is, in word and in action, to be a reflection of precision and integrity. And so I would take that to Annapolis in representation of our community. For some background, as I mentioned, I'm the son of Dominican immigrants. I know what that journey is like. I'm a Latino, and I'd like to represent all of those voices as well. My academic background is in political science, and my research focused in ways to reduce corruption in government. Again, I think transparency and accountability is important, and I think that's part of my mission and my vision moving forward. My day job, I'm a research director, and my job is to make objective analysis, to provide actionable recommendations, and solve complex problems. And I do that day in and day out, and that's sort of the attitude that I think a representative needs, a delegate needs, to move our district forward. As I mentioned in my opening as well, I'm a member of the Police Accountability Board. trying to instill trust from our community into our law enforcement, and also facilitate our law enforcement's jobs in our communities, which is important. And lastly, I'd say that the whole county experienced and continues to experience growth in population. It's important for us to also tackle the affordable housing issue, as well as the transportation infrastructure, to continue to grow the county alongside the infrastructure that we have, continue to grow everything for increased opportunities across the board.
Okay, thank you, George. Mark, why do you think you're the best qualified person to be our delegate?
Thank you for that question, Charles. So to put it simply, as I said in my opening, I've been here in the community for over a decade. I raised my family here. My mother is a renter here. So when I look at the community at large, I see a lot of improvement that can still be done, and we've come from we've made a lot of progress in the decade that I've been here. So I want to keep that energy going. That's important to me. Other than that, I come with a plurality of skills and perspectives due to my background as a STEM professional, due to my military experience, due to my community organizing, my community in PTAs, as a delegate as the MCC PTA, and the NAACP Parent Council. Because of all these experiences, I feel that they've equipped me with the tools to be able to advocate and bring improvements to the way we live here in the district.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Okay, Clint, why do you think you're the best person to be our delegate?
Thanks, Charles, for the question. I think have a couple of things that you got to consider when being a delegate. First thing, we have to build relationships. We have to build relationship not only with the Montgomery County delegation, but the D39 legislative team, which is something I have done over the years. I have great relationship with each and every one of them. And I have done a lot of work within the community in building that relationship, whether it's increasing the pay for a lot of the bus operators when we was hemorrhaging drivers to WMATA. So I had to sit down and talk with the county council in order to create some kind of legislation where we could produce to retain and recruit the best bus operators for the county to continue to provide service for up county and down county. Second, I as a union member, a lot of the work that we can do in Annapolis itself, it requires collective bargaining agreements, something where you have to come together as a team and sit down and have conversation at a table and negotiate. I have that unique skill because I've been in a collective bargaining team for my union for countless years. And I have that well-lived experience in doing it. And I know that a lot of the needs that our community need when it comes from housing to healthcare, to wages, to childcare, transportation, you name it. It's a lot of stuff that's going on in our community that we need to address. And me, over the course of 10 years, talking to a lot of residents and everything, I built a relationship throughout the county.
Okay, Clint, thank you very much. Okay, Greg, why do you think you're the best qualified person to be our delegate?
Thank you for the question. As I said earlier, being a lifelong resident of District 39, growing up in the historic Black community of Stewarttown, and attending the same church for all of my life, which is Goshen United Methodist Church, we've reached out to the community on various issues. One, when you talk about hunger, I've been on the board now for the last 15 years with Women Who Care Ministries, which is the largest nonprofit feeding kids in 39. Working with Judith Clark, who a lot of you know. As of today, about 2,500 kids get free meals during the lunch hour on a weekly basis. As relates to gun violence, all of you know, you've seen the news, but those who live in 39 know, we've had an increase. And that came partly about when the pandemic came and the schools were shut, that the kids lost a sense of being out. So with that, I work very closely with the commanders for the district, which has part of Gaithersburg, Montgomery Village, but also the commander from Germantown. One of the things that I'm so happy about is that about a month ago, we had a big meeting at Cider Mill where there's a lot of trouble, where the police department put up a big camera to help to find cars that are coming in and out. And HOC, who actually owns the property, has agreed to give cameras to the individuals there so that that would help to protect them. Also, being in the district all my life, in my current job, I serve also on the board of the Black Rock Center for the Arts, and that's in 39. So you look at, and the last thing I think I would say, which is so important to me, is the climate change. I'm on the board of the Chesapeake Bay, Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay is the official name. But with that, I personally have helped with that in Rotary to plant 5,000 trees. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Okay, we're going to move on to question 2. Question 2, if you're appointed, what are the top 3 legislative priorities that you will work on and fight for? And Greg, we're going to start with you on this one. So your top 3 priorities, Greg.
Okay, you still can hear me, correct?
Yes.
Yes. The first priority, as I said, because we see it now, is with our youth. I mentioned earlier about gun violence, but there's something that's gripping 39, but also gripping the whole county, and that's the use of our teenagers using these fentanyl, these pills that are color-coded. They look so pretty, but they're very dangerous. You could die off of one pill with fentanyl, but those that I've seen personally firsthand in the community, those who don't actually die or overdose from 1 or 2 times using, they become addicted. So one of the things I would like to do as the District 39 delegate, working with my colleagues in Annapolis, is to try to get funding, not only for 39, but actually throughout the state, to have treatment centers. As of now, because this is something new that's popped up in the last several months, we don't have that. Number 2, we talk about housing and so forth. Now, in Montgomery Village, which is the largest district of 39, we have Bloom Development now, building some 400 and some houses throughout the community there. One of the things that I would like to push for, because that's a done deal there, is more housing that's affordable. Affordable for our teachers, affordable for low-income families like myself when I grew up. So that would be the second major priority for me. And then I guess the last one would be, as I stated earlier, when it comes to hunger, we have today, and I think all of us on this call know, kids that actually go to bed hungry in 39, but also in this county. So make sure that we provide opportunities, partly with MANA, Women Who Care Ministries and other nonprofits, but also bringing the faith community in to make sure no kid goes to bed hungry. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Okay, Clint, what are your top 3 legislative priorities?
Thanks for that question, Charles. Again, I think the first one we have to address is education. I think we did a wonderful job with the blueprint from pushing forward enough funding and things, but I think we need to expand and go a little further where we start to introduce vocational life skill trades back into the school. So start teaching the kids them not only that you have the opportunity to go to college, but you can actually learn a trade and become successful as anything else. Because as you know, COVID exposed it where throughout COVID, we saw that people with degrees had to stay at home, and it was the essential employees who was out in the streets, just like myself. We was on the buses, getting everybody to and from work, the essential personnel. So I think we need to go back and look into that and see how we can expand more on a vocational side, where every kid have the opportunity to not only go to college, but have a apprenticeship where they can become a tradesperson. 2, I have to agree with Greg 100% when he talk about housing. Housing is we have a serious housing crisis problem in Maryland and in Montgomery County. But I think we need to dive a little deeper and say, it's not only a housing problem, we have a pricing problem. It's because the pricing have surpassed a lot of employees like myself affordability to live in the county. That's why the other day they had a study where they show a mass migration of people moving to Frederick County and Washington County because Montgomery County is no longer sustainable. We have to address this. There's no reason that the same houses that's building right there in Montgomery Village, by the same developer, you go 20 minutes up the road, is $200,000 to $300,000 less. that is a big crisis problem that we have to tackle and face. And me being a realtor, I understand it too well, where it's all about camps and everything like that. And third, I think transportation is a big issue that we need to push, because throughout a lot of these little pockets of the community, we're in dire need of transportation coming through and in to get them to
That's
work,
time,
to the
Clint.
working
Thank you.
place.
Okay, Clint, we're going to leave you. Okay, Mark, what are your top 3 legislative priorities?
So our main priority is to improve quality of life for our constituents here in District 39. And it's an umbrella of priorities for me. And it includes for affordable housing. And that feeds into having livable wages so that our constituents can afford these affordable housing. We need to create more affordable housing here in the district. And like Clint just said, we're outpricing our citizens here. So we need to fix that. The other thing that leads into the quality of life is the education, and specifically what I'm talking about is having more investment opportunities in our wellness centers in our schools. Our children are coming from a pandemic era where things were so chaotic, so depressing that, when they went back into the school, and I feel like we put them in school a bit prematurely. When we put them in school, they are having, and of course it's going to happen because they're learning in their teen years and adolescent years how to navigate social media now in the technology age, and just regular navigation of social circles. So of course they're going to have problems assimilating to the outside culture after we've been locked down for 2 years, and we had times of uncertainty. Sorry. So that is a very key component to encouraging our children to do well in school, is to give them the resources that they need to be successful in their academics. The other thing is transportation. We got to get people where they need to go. We also need to make it possible for the bus rapid transit system to get some legs and get it moving.
That's time, Mark. Thank you.
Okay, Mark, thank you. Okay, George, what are your top 3 legislative priorities?
Yeah, thank you. I'll start by saying, top 3, I would say education, public safety, and affordable housing. And I'll talk a little bit about each one of them. But it's important to recognize that there are other issues, as my colleagues have mentioned: healthcare, transportation, just to mention a few, the climate change, the climate crisis. And we have to tackle all of these issues in order to be able to move forward. But again, to answer the question, I think education certainly is a top priority for me. I think, as I mentioned at the outset, we had one of the top schools in the country, and I think we need to ensure access to quality education. We need resources for all of our students. Mark talks about the challenges across the pandemic. I think that's real and certainly something that needs to be addressed. We need to address that achievement gap, and we do that by supporting our teachers, teacher recruitment, retention, expanding access to pre-K, increasing funding for early childhood education and special education programs. I think we also need new vocational and training programs to acquire, the necessary skills of the next century in modernizing and green industries. So that's the first priority, I'd say. Public safety, as I mentioned, I work at the Police Accountability Board, and trying to reduce disparities in traffic stops is one of the most top issues that I face, that I work on day in and day out. I think that is certainly data behind that, and addressing that in terms of, again, instilling trust in our law enforcement agencies, and addressing public safety more often is somewhat left behind in terms of how it affects our minority and most vulnerable populations. And I think lastly, I'll talk about in terms of that work also, building relationships with our law enforcement officers. I talk on a quarterly basis with our law enforcement chiefs, and we have to make sure that we're all working as part of the team and building those relationships. I believe Clint mentioned this. I think it's also important. Affordable housing, I'll stop there, is a real problem. I agree with that. And people continue to leave, and we need to have affordable and safe housing for everyone to be able to thrive in the community.
Thank you, George.
Okay, thanks, George. Adam, your top 3 legislative priorities.
Okay, so as delegate, my top three priorities. Number one would be expanding public transit infrastructure in the Up County and beyond. My second would be housing reform and also rent control and stabilization measures. And then lastly, of course, it would be single payer healthcare. For expanding public transit infrastructure, I think we all can agree that when it comes to the District 39, or really just Montgomery County or the Up County in general, there isn't a lot of infrastructure or public transit infrastructure. Now, where I live, there's maybe one bus that comes down every like hour or so, right? And they're not available on the weekends, right? So as delegate, I would push to one, increase funding so that there can be a more robust bus transit system in the district and beyond. But also I would push for an expansion of not just our public bus infrastructure, but also maybe a metro infrastructure, so we can have metro lines leading out to Germantown and beyond, which would definitely help with businesses. It would definitely help with climate change because less people will be using cars as a result, among other things. When it comes to rent control and stabilization, of course, we have an example in Tacoma Park of its use and its effectiveness in keeping rents stable and low. I actually lived in Tacoma Park for some years, and it was very beneficial for me during that time, for my family during that time. So I would like to expand that, not just for Tacoma Park, but for not just for Montgomery County either, but for Maryland as a whole, because we see that as the rent will just keep going up. That is that is just a fact, right? What we can do then is control how that goes up. So that would be one thing I would focus on. And then, of course, working with Gabriel Acevedo, he sort of spearheaded the single payer healthcare campaign. So I would help him in that regard as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Bobby, tell us your top three legislative priorities.
Absolutely. So the number one legislative priority that I have would be addressing the literacy crisis that we have in our schools throughout society. This is something not a lot of people know about if they're not in the schools, but this is beyond Montgomery Village. I talk to teachers in other places all over the country. When I was student teaching in Anne Arundel, I saw this. We encountered a situation where during the pandemic, so many kids from lower income families, it seems that they basically went 2 years without reading anything that wasn't on their phone. And for a lot of kids, a lot of already shaky skills atrophied horribly. And so there's a problem. It's bad. So immediate solutions to that. We need to increase the ESOL support and paraeducators, most especially in our school. We need to have more of those positions available. We need to pay them more because people talk about teachers being underpaid, and we are. But that's nothing compared to the paraeducators. Beyond that, I think this is the sort of thing that we need to have like major studies and like fact-finding things to figure out some of the best ways to approach this problem. Another big priority for me is transportation. I think the traffic in District 39 is, if it's not the biggest issue that people face, it's the issue that the most people face the most often. It's brutal, trying to travel down 270 in the morning. Clarksburg is a place that was built up without the infrastructure that was promised. So it's a false bill of goods. So the single biggest thing that I would like to do, to get some of the cars off the road, we need to expand MARC rail service on the Brunswick line, full-time two-way service. Last thing, third, 100% renewable energy. Looks like I'm running out of time to elaborate on that.
Thank you, Bobby. Okay, thank you all the candidates for question 2. Okay, let's move on to question 3. If appointed, what specific environmental goal will you pursue? And we're going to start with George. We're going to start with you on this one. Give us your environmental goal.
Sure. Thank you, Charles. I think protecting the environment and reducing carbon emissions is certainly an important policy issue for all of the residents of the district. I would start with promoting renewable energy. Bobby was just finishing that thought. I'd like to continue on it, essentially helping to expand and reinforce the credits that we have on renewable energy like solar. I think we need to reduce waste and pollution, and also preserve the local green spaces. There has to be a balance that has to be struck in terms of affordable housing and development of those infrastructure, transportation, but also preserving the green spaces that are so cherished for all of us that serve as the lung of the county as well. So I would start there. I think an electric fleet of buses and other public transportation is a must, certainly in terms of government fleets as well. Protection of the Chesapeake Bay, I think that is a given. We all live in a watershed, and I think protecting the bay is a matter of public health. And again, just continue to expand on those issues and sort of make sure that we build relationships along the way so that we can address, again, all of the issues at the same time.
Thank you, George. Okay, we'll go on to Mark. Tell us your environmental goal.
Thanks, Charles, for that question. The General Assembly was right in passing the Climate Solutions Now Act of 2022, and I think we should continue building on that by moving away from trash incinerators, increasing clean job energies. And examples like the Clean Trucks Act that was passed this year by the legislature, those are all innovative ideas to help us reduce our carbon footprint and our emissions. We should also have biotech investments in biotech as a county approach, and we should support the county executive initiatives on this matter. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Okay, we're going to move on to Clint. Clint, tell us your specific environmental goal.
Well, I think you just hit up in my wheelhouse with that one because, you know, we all know transportation is one of the leading causes in climate change with a greenhouse gas emission that spews into the air. I'm happy to let everyone know I was part of the Better Bus Coalition where we worked diligently with a county executive and a county council in getting the buses free, but also promoting to try to get bus-only lanes throughout the county for the ride-on buses, because that is one of the major issues. If we could start to get bus-only lanes, not only throughout the county, but on 270 and everything, it's going to help reduce congestion and it'll encourage more drivers to get out of the car and get on the bus, where that help plays a part in reducing our greenhouse gas emissions from the air. And Mark said it best. It had a lot of transportation bill that was passed in the legislature this year, and we need to not only dig into them, but actually find where the money could be allocated, and where the money is allocated, how to spend it and use the resource properly and wisely, that way we could control it. Also, we have to address the wind solar panel things that we have putting out to help reduce the. I'll leave it right there. Thank you.
Okay, Clint, thank you. Okay, next we'll go on to Greg. Greg, what's your specific environmental goal?
Thank you very much for that question. As I stated early, I'm a member and have been for, I guess, 4 years now, the Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay. But one of the things to me is very important to help with climate control is to plant more trees. The more trees we have, the more that we can deal with the carbon dioxide that's we're creating. Secondly, I wanted to say that I did support, as a citizen, a taxpayer, Senate Bill 781, which is promoting offshore wind energy. And so that's one of the things we'll continue to have more wind energy coming in to save, of course, our climate. The other thing that for me is more important, and it was mentioned by my colleagues that are talking about getting cars off the road. Of course, Mark Train. We had a meeting in my job about 2 months ago where we talked with the officials from the state about expanding Mark Train to come all the way up through Germantown. That would be a tremendous help for all of us. And then the other thing we would say is that more stations for electric cars. We need more because, of course, if we have the electric cars, that would help with the emissions. And then the last thing, and Clint mentioned it, and he talked about the buses. I did work with our county executive in my job to push for more electric buses to be on the roads in Montgomery County. So I think in a nutshell, those are the things that will help with climate change in District 39, but also throughout the state.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Okay, we'll go on to Bobby. What specific environmental goal will you pursue?
Yeah, so as I touched on in the top three priorities, pressing towards 100% renewable energy. Certainly, we made tremendous strides with that in the Climate Solutions Now Act, and we need to keep pushing with that. Yeah, I mean, certainly the single biggest thing is, of course, getting on climate change and carbon emissions. State's biggest role for a lot of that, I talk about electrified bus fleets and all of that, generally to provide the funding, things like that. Also, I think, protecting the Chesapeake Bay needs to be a top priority. We need to restore that to the once glorious ecosystem that it was. The single biggest thing that we need to do, two things. One, continue to build relationships with the legislators in the other states in the watershed to, get them on board. But within our own borders, the single biggest point source of the pollution is a lot of the chicken farms on the Eastern Shore, and it's going to take a lot of political will to do something about that, but it's absolutely necessary for the health of the Bay.
Okay, thank you, Bobby. Okay, let's move on to Adam. Adam, what's your specific environmental goal?
So in terms of specifics, of course, we all, I believe, share the same goal of reaching carbon neutrality by 2035. That's what the climate scientists have told us we need to do, not just as a district or as a country, but as the entire planet. We have to reach carbon neutrality by 2035 in order to forego the worst effects of climate change. So because of that, I believe that there needs to be an aggressive approach to how we address climate change. So one thing that I would push for, of course, is I'm sure everyone has said it before, but of course, investing in electrical public infrastructure, electric buses, electric metro lines. I would also be in favor of pushing policy that continues to make new housing developments green. Right, a lot of the pollution and stuff that we deal with, especially in Maryland, comes from new housing developments and just how they are built. Right, concrete is not really a sustainable material. Right, it uses a lot of pollution, or it creates a lot of pollution in its production. So I would push for policy that changes that, makes it easier for developers to create that green infrastructure. I would also like to push for planting fruit-bearing trees in food deserts. There's a lot of places, not just in the district, but all across Montgomery County and Maryland as a whole, where people don't have proper access to fresh fruits and vegetables. So one of the things we can do to not only address that, but also the climate crisis is by planting fruit-bearing trees in those areas. That supplies them with food, it supplies them with shade and green stuff from the trees, right? And I think that's one of the main things that I would be focusing on as a delegate. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Appreciate all the answers so far. Okay, question number 4. Describe a specific success you've had as a public policy advocate or a community activist. And Adam, we're going to go back to you and let you start this one.
Unmute, please.
There you go.
Okay, what was the question again? I'm sorry.
Tell us a success you've had as a public policy advocate or a community activist.
Okay, well, one thing that I suppose I can showcase, I was a volunteer with the No More SROs in School. I can't remember the name of the specific group, right? But it was spearheaded by Michaela Wilkes. And, the goal was to get school resource officers out of public schools. And the reason for that was because the presence of police in schools was detrimental to the learning experience of the students there. I have personal experience with that myself. So I was, volunteer. I was I helped with those initiatives, and we did make some progress, at least in the early years of the pandemic, where I believe it was Mark Elrich who started, removing SROs from specific schools in Montgomery County, and then also, of course, across the state as well. So I believe that's one thing that is really mentionable in this case. When it comes to anything else, really, for me, I don't really like to tout a lot of the things that I have done. When it comes to all the activism that I do, I don't want credit. So, right, I could say that I've planted 20 to 30 fruit trees in the district over the past 2 years. But, that's just something, right? So, I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, Adam, thank you. Okay, Bobby, could you describe a specific success you've had as a public policy advocate or community activist?
Sure. Well, you might have to ask me again in a couple of hours. This relates to the reason I'm kind of juggling meetings on here. My HOA board has their annual meeting tonight, and the reason this is a big priority for me to make sure I was also on it is this is kind of the culmination of a year-long kind of micro legislative effort to change the parking rules in our community to allow commercial vehicles. So like, if you have a truck that has like the name of your painting company on the side of it, or like plumbing, or you have ladders on your roof, something like that, they're currently prohibited in the community, and it forces residents to park out on Wisteria, which is a very busy road, where pedestrian safety issues come up. It's away from their home, so chances of getting thousands of dollars worth of tools stolen, and in addition, kind of the indignity of just kind of you're not welcome to. This is the main car you drive every day, and you're not welcome to park that in here. I felt out of some sort of sense of snootiness, maybe wanting to keep up appearances, and I felt it was basically discriminatory against people who have kind of more blue collar jobs. So that is something I made a priority of working on, and we are probably going to vote on that pretty soon here. So I have to juggle these things. Mr. Cunningham, of course, Adam can testament to my my skills managing the homeowners association as a former constituent.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Bobby. George, tell us your success as a community activist or public policy advocate.
Thank you for that question. I think to start off, I'd say that working as a member of the Police Accountability Board, I'm working closely with other, of course, members, and so what I'm expressing right now is my opinion, and I'm not speaking on behalf of the board. But I will say that from that point of view, we've established a working relationship again between the board, the community, and law enforcement officers, chiefs of the law enforcement agencies across our jurisdiction. And this is all a very brand new effort from a law that was recently enacted, a board that's recently come into play. And so we're in terms of finding the spaces where we can ultimately just make Montgomery County a more prosperous county. That's really the goal here, and the success of that, I hope, will be seen soon. But in terms of the specifics, our work and sort of my contribution to that team is I am very much a data-driven person, and finding again solutions to complex problems. In this case, we're trying to work with our police, law enforcement agency partners to try to find ways to improve policing where necessary. And some of our recommendations there have been to intensify recruitment of candidates from minority racial groups, increase recruitment of female officers as well. We've also recommended law enforcement agencies to adopt policies, practices, and procedures that prohibit stops for non-traffic safety violations. I believe Councilmember Joando's STEP Act is similar in some respects. And again, just trying to make sure that all of our law enforcement agencies are complete, informed, community-informed police training, and that we expand the data that they collect. And little by little, we're seeing sort of the fruit of our labor here. Recently, I saw a post about a community liaison for Hispanic, the Hispanic community, and improvements that will hopefully soon to come. But again, from a lot of hard work into this new arena.
Okay, thank you, George. Greg, tell us
Yes,
a
thank-
specific success you've had as community activist or public policy advocate.
Okay, thank you so much for that question. As a rule in my upbringing, I try to be sort of humble, but I think in this situation, I would have to speak truth to power. The most important, I think, what happened 20 years ago, and most of the people on this call will remember, it was the DC area sniper shootings, where unfortunately we were terrorized for 5 weeks, where 2 shooters we know now were killing people innocently, whether they're at a gas station, on a schoolyard, etc. The Victims' Rights Foundation, which I'm the founder of, and at the time founder and president, was asked by the Montgomery County Police and the executive to take the lead in helping those citizens that lost their life. There were 10 that lost their lives and 3 others wounded. With the help of the community, and a large part too through my church right there in 39, Goshen United Methodist Church, we were able to raise $500,000 for those victims. All the money, because the Victims' Rights Foundation is a volunteer group, was spread equally to those victims. In addition to that, we traveled to Virginia Beach and then to Chesapeake, Virginia over a 3-month period to be with those victims during the trial. So I think that was the most significant thing that I can say as a volunteer, as a community leader. Now, as it relates to NAACP, because I have a few more times, I was elected the county president, but then after that, I was elected state president. And as state president, we took some 200 or so NAACPers to Ocean City area, particularly in Snow Hill, where we pushed and lobbied to make sure that the districts were drawn, where the case Delegate Pennell was the first Black person from that Eastern Shore to come to the House of Delegates. Very proud of that effort that we led, and I was the leader of that effort back with the NAACP. And then finally, if I have for a second, in Germantown, the Boys and Girls Club is there. We talked about youth and youth needing a place to go. Helped to raise $100,000 working with the state, actually, and I believe Senator King was part of that. Give her credit. Ike Legg was the county executive then, but we got enough money to build the Boys and Girls Club in Germantown, and I was the chairman of the board for that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Clint, describe a specific success you've had as a public policy advocate or community activist.
First, I got to thank Greg for all the hard work he did, because I'd like to mention one of the victims is a colleague of mine. He was a bus operator that was part of that whole incident that happened. So, I appreciate you for all the work you did there. Moving forward, one of the things that I did, like I mentioned, being a bus operator, we was hemorrhaging 2 to 3 drivers per week resigning, going to WMATA because of a better wage structure system that they had. So it goes back to building relationship and having good rapport with the delegation, where that's when I had a chance to step up and talk to the county council. And we worked over the years in coming up with a wage scale plan that matches WMATA, so that we could actually recruit and retain a lot of the bus operators that we was losing every single week. Because like I said, we was losing 2 to 3 bus operators a week to WMATA for a better scale, for a better way of living. Now that we have matched those pay scale with them, we're now actually seeing a turnaround where we're having drivers coming from one model into Ride-On. So now to expand on our transit system. So that's something I'm happy to announce that I was part of the whole deal making when we made that legislation possible in improving the pay salary structure for every driver. Second, as a member of the Reimagine Public Task Force, along with George, I was there to help create tentative solutions where we come up with ideas and policies what could actually improve relationship between law enforcement and disproportionately stressed communities. And I was fortunate to be part of the training group where we look deep into the fact of the training, where a lot of the problem that we had stems from training, because sometimes if you have someone who have a bad who have a bad idea, they pass it on to the new person along the line. And I think that's where Council Member Will Jawando get some of the idea to do that step act where he passed that, try to get rid of the traffic stop and everything like that. So that was something I was happy to be part of in bringing ideas forward that now it looked to hopefully become a policy and a rule.
Okay, thank you, Clint. Mark, name a specific success you've had as a public policy advocate or community activist.
Thank you again for that question. Maya Angelou once said that when we witness atrocities, we have to remain angry. We have to hold that anger to motivate us to create change. And it's with that guiding light and the atrocities that we witnessed back in 2020 that motivated me to advocate and help Delegate Acevedo push Anton's law. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done to expand that and to make improvements to it, and I'm here for that. The second thing I did was when I was a delegate on the MCC PTA, we advocated for the casino revenue to trickle back down to the schools and the education systems. That's also something that needs to be improved on, and that's something I look forward to doing when I get to the General Assembly.
Okay, thank you, Mark. I want to thank all the candidates. You're doing well. Continue to hang in there. We're all getting near the finish. Okay, question number 5. If appointed, what will you do to assist families with the high cost of childcare? And we'll start with Clint. We're going to start with you on this one.
Man, you should ask me that question 10 years ago, because, you know, as a parent of 2 kids with disability, you know, it's very hard to find good childcare to serve the needs of my kids. And I was lucky that we had a good daycare that was doing it. But, you know, every week I used to pay over $700 just in childcare alone. So I think it have a lot of programs that's in place that needs to really look, because when the bills and programs and subsidy program was designed 20 and 30 and 40 years ago, it represented the time of that time. Now that we're in this time, we need to actually go back in and amend a lot of those legislative bills to reflect the time it is right now. And that's where my skills as a union organizer and someone who's been on the collective bargaining team, negotiating contracts after contracts, understand the language that is necessary and where it needs to be improved and amended to actually address and help lift a lot of communities, families that's in dire need of this support.
Okay, thank you, Clint. Okay, Mark, you're up. What would you do to assist families with the high cost of childcare?
Thank you. As a parent, I've been through the gamut when it comes to high childcare costs. It's almost matched my mortgage, if you can believe it. Not shocking at all. So first and foremost, I believe in universal childcare for all. And that's an initiative that I definitely want to support, and I definitely want to push through. Till we get there, we should definitely look into subsidizing and creating programs to help low-income families with childcare costs. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Okay, Greg.
Okay,
What will you
thank
do
you.
to assist families with the high cost of childcare?
The first thing would work closely from Indianapolis, representing 39 with the governor. I think that's one of his key priorities, is to make sure that we have childcare for all the families, especially low-income families. The other would be to increase the dollars that we spend with our public schools, where that every child from age 3 and up, 3 through 12, will be able to be in school. I was a Head Start teacher back in my early days, and I knew how important it was for those 4-year-olds at that time to not only get the good care, but food and such, et cetera. The other thing I would do is work closely with our county delegation to make sure that, as was stated earlier by some of my other colleagues here, that we provide the funding that will make sure that those especially low-income families will have the funds to make sure that their kids can in fact have affordable but also safe childcare. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Greg. George, what will you do to assist families with the high cost of childcare?
Yeah, I think that that's a big issue. And as I mentioned at the outset as well, one of my priorities in terms of addressing the education challenge, the issues that we face. I think to address childcare specifically, I think we need to increase funding for the subsidies that are available. That's certainly one way to reduce that financial burden, is to provide subsidies to low-income families. We can make childcare more affordable and more accessible to those who need it the most. I think encouraging also employer-sponsored childcare, being able to have employers provide on-site childcare facilities or subsidies for employees, so that we can help, again, reduce the burden on working families, and expanding just the quality, affordable healthcare or childcare, investing in expanding access, specifically supporting programs that train and certify more childcare providers, establishing partnerships with community organizations. And lastly, I'd say increasing public awareness. I think it's been said before here that quality childcare, quality education. I said definitely at the outset, this is the backbone of our community. There is a high impact to our community when there's a high cost of childcare and folks can't access that vital service. So I think by educating the public and other lawmakers, policymakers, we can build support for policies that aim to address that.
Thank you, George. Okay, Adam, what will you do to assist families with the high cost of childcare?
All right, so I think one of the first things we could do to address that issue, myself having two boys myself, one has, my younger, he has autism, my older son, he has ADHD. So, one of the main things I think we could do to sort of address that is with the child care tax credits. I know that there's some way for us as a state legislature to create tax credits. So one of those things would be expanding the child care tax, or the child tax credit that we have right now. Maybe also implementing some child care credits, things that people could use in order to get money back from their taxes after paying for child care, expanding those programs if we have it. Also, I really liked what Mr. Gregg had to say about increasing public school funding to fund affordable, if not free, after-school programs. That's another thing that I would push for as a delegate, to do that. Expanding IEP and 504 plans to address any issues with students who have learning disabilities and whatnot. But at the crux of it, this is all it's a layered and multifaceted issue that involves not just childcare, but housing, right? Wage increases, transportation. It takes time and energy for these things to come about. But yeah, I believe that addressing all of those issues would also help build up families with children in. So thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Okay, Bobby, what will you do to assist families with the high cost of childcare?
Well, short of some sort of broad, subsidy program, universal, childcare, which would certainly be the, I guess, ideal solution. Unfortunately, the state of Maryland isn't really in a position to, print money on a balance sheet the way the federal government is. So the way I would approach that as a first start would be to expand to universal pre-K down to age 3. So having that available, the bulk of the year, the bulk of the day as a public service available, whether that's directly through school systems, which would need some expansion in that case, or through some sort of system that incorporates local preschools as currently exist.
Okay, Bobby, thank you. Okay, we have a little time, so I'm going to throw out one more question. This question number 6. Do you plan to ensure that immigrants voices are heard in Annapolis? And we'll just go from the top in alphabetical order. So, Bobby, we'll start with you. Well, I guess we're going to start with Adam. See who's up.
Sorry about that,
Bobby,
Charles.
We'll start with you. Do you plan to ensure that immigrants' voices are heard in Annapolis?
Absolutely, I will. You know, as delegate, I would consider my responsibility to be not strictly to the voters, but to the residents of my community, which includes a number of immigrants, be they citizens or not, of legal status or not. You know, we are lucky. Germantown is the most diverse city in the entire country. By recent reports, I would wager District 39, taken as a whole, has similar distinctions. And you know, immigrants are the backbone of this community. I'm married to an immigrant. The majority of my students are immigrants. Absolutely, there is no community without our immigrant population.
Thank you, Bobby. Okay, now we'll go to Adam. Adam, do you plan to ensure immigrants' voices are heard in Annapolis?
You know, this is an interesting question because the answer, of course, is yes, right? I don't really think there needs to be any more elaboration to it. You know, Bobby said it well, you know, this country could not be made without immigrants, right? And with District 39 being one of the most diverse districts, or rather Germantown being one of the most diverse cities in the country, you know, we have to have they have to have a voice, right? So as delegate, I would ensure that their voices are heard, and I would be the one to listen to them.
Okay, thank you, Adam. George, do you plan to ensure that immigrants' voices are heard in Annapolis?
Well, definitely. If I'm appointed, I would be one of them. And so I think that to echo what my peers have said so far, I mean, Germantown Gators being most diverse in the country. I think in terms of the county, there is a 30% or more or less of immigrant population. So yes, it's crucial that immigrant voices are heard, and I would represent perhaps more closely the Latino population because of my background, but certainly the immigrant voices of all of our community members that span the globe. And I think that firstly, you know, immigrants have unique experiences and perspectives, and we bring a set of diverse views and ideas to the table, which I think is something that sets me apart. I think aside from that, immigrants are essential to the economy and society overall, culturally, economically, as we've said, with the diversity in Germantown, Gaithersburg, we make our community stronger and I'd say more vibrant. So it's certainly imperative that their voices are heard in policymaking, and that we can work towards issues that are more inclusive and that involve all of the members of our community.
Thank you, George. Mark, do you plan to ensure that immigrants' voices are heard in Annapolis?
Without a doubt, that's a priority. District 39 has 39,000 Latinos, 30,000 African Americans. We are a majority district, and of that population, we have a huge population of immigrants. The way we do that is electing and appointing officials and elected officials to positions that will allow them to listen to immigrant communities. We had an immigrant healthcare bill that did not pass in this last session, and that was egregious in my point of view. We definitely need to do better by listening to these communities, and I feel like I'm the best person to do that.
Okay, thank you, Mark. I think we're back to Clint after Mark. Okay, Clint, do you plan to ensure that immigrants' voices are heard in Annapolis?
Absolutely. At some point in time, we all have to say we are all immigrants of this country and this state in technicality. But being a union leader, whenever I'm doing contracts and negotiating or fighting for better wages or health care or working condition, I never look at the ethnic nor the nationality. I look at it as from a humanitarian point of view, like we are all one family and we should fight. We should fight to uplift every voice, no matter what it is. So going to Annapolis, I'm going to continue the same path as I've been doing, fighting for everyone. It doesn't matter where you're from, because we're all immigrants of some point of time in our life.
Thank you, Clint. Okay, Greg, do you plan to ensure the immigrants' voices are heard in Annapolis?
Thank you. And as I like to call them, newcomers to our community, the first thing is absolutely yes. We need to hear their voice, and we want to make sure that we make it easy in Annapolis for them to be heard and to speak. I wanted to give a couple examples of some of the things I've done already to make sure that our newcomers are heard. And that is when we have our town hall meetings, we make sure that we have the interpreters there for the major languages that we have, of course, Spanish, but we also have Chinese, and then we have other languages too. Second, I wanted to say that one of the things that I did at South Lake Elementary, because we all know that school that was neglected for so many years, now being built, the community came to me, it was 90% immigrants. They said that no one would listen to them, that they needed to get a crossing guard. 2 kids had been hit, thank God, none of them were killed. So what I did was put together a meeting with our county executive to make sure that, number one, we got that crossing guard, and we did. But number two, that they gave them my number, my personal number also, to say any other issues that come forward, that we, in fact, want to hear from you and we want you to speak. And then the last thing, because all of us agree that we have to make sure that our immigrants, and I call newcomers, are heard. I work very closely with what is called the trailer park. I like to call mobile homes in Germantown, where there are 500 or so, mostly Latino families, to make sure not only with healthcare, vaccines, et cetera, but also with food, working with the Up County hub there in that Germantown area. So absolutely, they will be heard, and I would encourage that they come to Annapolis. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Okay, at this point, we have a little time, so I'd like to give everybody 1 minute to make a closing statement. And Mike, we're going to go in reverse alphabetical order, if you would. So Greg, we're going to start with you. You have 1 minute to make a closing statement.
Okay. First, I want to thank all of my colleagues. I call them 39. I've been totally impressed with each and every one of you tonight that have spoken. I know most of you anyway as great leaders. So I just want to say thank you first. Second, thank you, MC, the Montgomery County Democratic Central Committee and District 39 for putting together this public forum. I see that we have a lot of people from the community on this call. So in closing, I would simply say that I've worked very closely for many, many years, over 40 some years in 39, making sure that the quality of life is shared equally among all. And secondly, I am actually doing the job now, and my current job is Up County Regional Services Director, all the things that will be needed in Annapolis. I've been touching base with our delegation, touching base, of course, with the county exec, et cetera. And then finally, I will work with all of us, whoever it is. If I'm the lucky one to get in, work with our senator and our 2 delegates. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Good luck. Clint, give us a 1 minute closing statement.
Well, I'd like to thank everyone for attending, all my colleagues, the D39 Club for hosting this event, and the MCDCC members who are in attendance, and our fully engaged audience. And I'll make it short and sweet. You know, in 2018, I ran for the same seat for District 39, and it was 7 of us run, and I received 1,039 votes. I just ran for it again in 2022. And this time I had the pleasure and the opportunity to partner not only with Senator Nancy King, but Delegate Leslie Lopez and outgoing Delegate Curry Resnick as a team. So I was part of the District 39 team, again, with building coalition and building a community where we work together. I received over 4,663 votes in the last election that just went in July 19th. By knocking on over 10,000 doors and speaking to a lot of candidates. So, you know, I think I uniquely qualify for this position. I have been doing all the groundworks, been doing all the community activism work, and getting out in front of the people for the past over a decade right now. So I look forward to our continued support.
Okay, thank you. Mark, can you give us a 1-minute closing statement?
Unmute, Mark.
Okay, now try it, Mark.
Sorry about that. Thank you again, Charles. Thank you again to the D39 Club for hosting tonight's forum and for the opportunity to share why I believe I'm the best person to fill this vacancy. I want to thank all the other candidates for putting themselves forward. Like Governor Westmore once said, I'm data-driven, heart-led. Data-driven, heart-led. Let that sink in. And that data shows we have a lot more work to do for the constituents of District 39. I'm going to end the way I started, which is to remind you that I am a parent, a small business owner, Navy veteran, and your elected Central Committee member for District 39. District 39 deserves representation that not only looks like the community, but is also responsive. I'm committed to serving this district where I've raised my family and leave no one behind. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mark. George, can you give us a 1-minute closing statement?
Sure, thank you. And thank you all, members of the MCDCC. You've been working hard and diligently with the changes of the new administration, so I appreciate the opportunity here. Certainly want to ask for all of your support. The diversity of the district, which mentioned, should be reflected in our representation in Annapolis, and I think I do a good job of that. I approach problems in a data-driven and solution-oriented way. Using objective analysis and evidence, I think we can develop effective policies that address the challenges we face. I'm also committed to bringing people together to find common ground and achieve our shared goals. And I think that includes very much so working closely with the District 39 legislative team. Certainly understand that diverse perspectives and voices are essential to creating meaningful and lasting change. And so if I'm selected, I'd use those skills and experience to represent the interests of our community, to work tirelessly to advance those shared values and goals. So please consider supporting my candidacy, and together we can create a more prosperous District 39.
Thank you, George. Adam, give us a 1-minute closing statement.
All right. So yes, thank you all for your time today, the members of the MCDCC, everyone listening, all the fellow candidates. It's been an honor to speak with you and share my vision for District 39 and Montgomery County as a whole. As a progressive candidate, I am committed to fighting for the needs of our communities, ensuring that everyone has a voice in government. So if you would like a strong person willing to fight unyieldingly for the issues that impact all of us, be it climate change, cost of living, housing costs, police reform, what have you, you have a candidate in me. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Adam. And Bobby, you get the last word. Give us a 1-minute closing.
Thank you so much. I love this community. I thank you all so much for those who came, participated in this, all of those who applied. And we're in a time where public education is under attack. Teachers themselves are under attack. Knowledge is under attack. Facts are under attack. So in a time like this, it's really important that we have teachers in the legislature, people who have been there they're in the classroom, who know, what's actually going on in there. So many legislators, they go and they take the tours of the schools, they see what's going on in there, but they don't really see what's going on if you're not there for, day in, day out, not as like a special guest where everyone's kind of gawking at you. So, with a threat from fascism that we're facing, with having books in my classroom that would get me locked up in the state of Florida, we need leaders who are students of history.
That's time, Bobby. Thank you.
Okay, Bobby, thank you. I want to thank everybody for listening. The candidates, you all did a great job. I think we're going to be lucky if we can pick any one of you. To everybody that's listening, if you have a preferred candidate, you can send a letter of support to the Central Committee. Just send it by email to D39vacancy@mcdcc.org. That's D39vacancy@mcdcc.org. And Mike, I want to thank you for keeping time. And again, I want to thank everybody for listening. And Sharon, I know you're out there. Thank you for being my backup in case I needed you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, Charles.
Good night, everyone. Take
Everybody
care.
have a good night.
Good night.